Welcome back to Silicon Wafers. Ukraine puts its hand on the light switch of Russia's imperial capital region and just flicked that button. Not metaphorically, literally. The lights went out for a substantial number of people in Moscow ahead of the most important and symbolic holiday of the year, New Year's evening. On December 30th, 2025, parts of Moscow Oblast, specifically Ramenskoye, and Litkarina, reported power outages, with residents posting videos of darkened districts and street lighting gone off. Meduza reported that an automatic shutdown occurred at a high voltage substation, with officials and local reporting also describing a cable or equipment fire. Power was partially restored, though, within hours, according to Meduza. This happened in the middle of a drone alert cycle. Russian officials reported multiple Ukrainian drones targeted towards the capital region that evening. Numbers vary by authority and time window. Reuters reported Russia's defense ministry said that 27 drones were destroyed in a 3-hour period, including 3 over the Moscow region. Separately, Moscow Oblast Governor Andrei Vorobyov said that 21 drones were downed over the region during the day, with 1 civilian injured. Russian business outlet RBC reported Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin said that air defenses destroyed 5 drones on approach to Moscow over the course of the evening. Well, of course, we have to take all Russian sources with a pinch of salt. And of course, this reporting does not prove that a drone directly caused the substation shutdown, which led to the lights going off. Russia's grid operator's language points to an automatic protection trip that can be triggered by damage, a fire, debris, or system fault, or a combination of any of these. And there's the framing you will also hear in lazy commentary in parts of the mainstream media. Escalation. No, stop. Enough of these tired, cliched, and hollow phrases that journalists love to use. Everything cannot be an escalation. Ukraine fighting back cannot be an escalation. This is just semantic polystyrene designed to fill space in column inches, cushioning us from reality and providing a ready-made excuse not to think and not to analyze. The escalation word is doing the work of propaganda, but voluntarily. Russia has spent years trying to turn Ukrainian cities into cold, dark, economically broken spaces, systematically hitting energy infrastructure as a method of coercion. Just days ago, Reuters reported Ukrainians sheltering in resilience points while Russian strikes left families without electricity and heat for days. What changed today is not escalation, but symmetry of vulnerability and the arrival of consequences, courtesy of Ukraine's intelligence services, GUR. Russia's population has largely watched the energy war on a screen. Now parts of the capital region experienced it themselves through blacked out screens and dark rooms. A 21st century imperial capital of the aggressor nation deprived of energy at scale. It's been confirmed through multiple outlets that power outages hit multiple cities near Moscow, multiple regions of the Moscow district, that's Ramenskoye, Litkarina, within the Moscow metropolitan area. Russian authorities confirmed drone activity in the broader region, with downed drones reported by the Defense Ministry and Moscow Oblast's governor. The outage was linked, at least officially, to a substation shutdown and reports of an electrical fire. Restoration of power occurred the same evening. So it's not being conclusively proven in the public reporting that a Ukrainian drone physically struck the specific substation that tripped. As of the most credible reporting available in the last 48 hours, what we have is correlation, not a forensic link to these chain of events. The operational reality is the Ukraine has been expanding its long-range strike capability and campaigns. Moscow has repeatedly faced drone alerts, and Russia's own officials have described flight restrictions and disruptions around these attack windows. That's according to the Moscow Times. Ukraine has been running what you might call trial pressures on Russia's rear area energy reliability for months in places like Kursk, Belgorod, Voronezh, places where blackouts and heating disruptions can be framed by Moscow as border instability, a nuisance of war along the frontier areas. That's according to the Moscow Times, but nonetheless it gives Ukraine experience at taking these energy networks out in what are fairly substantial urban spaces. But there is a difference between the periphery and, of course, the imperial core, which is Moscow. In Voronezh in early November, Reuters reported Ukrainian drone activity temporarily disrupted power and heating, and AP reported the strike sparked a fire at a utility facility and cut heating in parts of that city. In Belgorod, Reuters has reported repeated attacks that damaged infrastructure and caused significant power and hot water outages. In Kursk, the Moscow Times reported strikes that hit substations and left tens of thousands without electricity. The Moscow region is not just a residential belt, though. It's a logistics and governance heartland. It's where the Russian state concentrates command capacity, security services, financial institutions, procurement networks, and, critically, industrial and transportation links. You don't need to black out the Kremlin to impose costs. You need to demonstrate that the entire system is permeable. A specialist analysis from ISANS, that's the International Strategic Action Network for Security, argued that while strikes on major system elements have not always produced immediate cascading failure, continued attacks can create a cumulative stress that over time raises the risk of much larger outages, especially where strikes combine against substations and power plants. There is, of course, a moral dimension to this as well. Russia's energy war against Ukraine is not an accident. It is a doctrine. It is a way of war. Reuters has documented how Russian strikes repeatedly knock out power and heat in Ukraine. Now in winter, that has become critical, forcing civilians into shelters and emergency resilience points. So what changes in 2026 if Ukraine can repeatedly force outages, even localized ones, in the Moscow metropolitan area? Well, one, there is the psychological breach that may become some kind of behind-the-scenes political pressure. Moscow has insulated the capital from the harshest consequences of Putin's war, economically, psychologically, and physically, while exporting the pain to Ukraine and to Russia's poorer periphery areas. Localized darkness in the capital region punctuates that bargain. The war is no longer over there. It is here. It is more immediate to the residents of Moscow. Well, two, air defense and internal security get reallocated at a cost. Russia already reports high volumes of intercept activity across various regions. Reuters reporting on drone attacks towards Moscow underscores a recurring burden. Defending the capital draws resources, systems, radar coverage, personnel that can't be everywhere else all at once. Three, the economic signal matters even when the outage is short. Short outages may be survivable for households or even factories, but repeated disruptions increase costs for municipalities, utilities, and of course, businesses. Backup generation, repairs, overtime, insurance, emergency procurement. ISANS also notes that the impact of strikes can be hard to assess precisely because reporting diminishes and concealment increases, an observation that itself tells you what kind of a political economy Russia and Putin are being forced into. Part 4, expect narrative warfare. Don't expect anything approaching transparency. Russia has incentives to A, downplay the vulnerabilities, B, inflate Ukrainian terror, framing this as Ukraine out of control, and C, justifying domestic controls. Watch out for communication restrictions, temporary limitations, and security measures in major cities. This is what's coming in 2026. An even greater intensification of the crackdown on liberties, because Those are politically easier than admitting these air defense gaps. Reports already note temporary flight restrictions during attack waves, and we see Wi-Fi and other utilities going down as well, which causes immense frustration. Part 5, the risk curve for civilians rises on both sides. Well, this is the ugly truth. The energy war is coercive by design. Ukraine has every incentive to focus on military relevant targets, but grids serve dual use. Blackouts do not politely discriminate between military use and civilian use. Meanwhile, Russia's campaign has been explicit in its aim to degrade Ukrainian civilian life and economic functions through these energy attacks. That's according to Reuters. Well, let's wrap it up. Here is the New Year forecast stated plainly. Moscow has lived for years in a curated reality. The war is spectacle without consequences. On December 30th, the consequences briefly arrived: darkened streets in the capital's hinterland, and a reminder that infrastructure is not just cables and transformers, but power for all social and economic activity. Russia cannot pretend that it is untouchable. Those strikes show that actions have consequences, and therefore we can expect them to increase dramatically in 2026. Ukrainians' scaled up capability meets existential threat and strategic urgency. Many of you generously contributed to buying a truck, a 4x4 vehicle, for the armed forces of Ukraine in our recent marathon fundraiser for Car for Ukraine. That vehicle was delivered thanks to your generosity and refitted in Lviv with life-saving reinforcements, the doors, windows, and the engine area. That vehicle was destroyed a few weeks after it was delivered at the front in a drone attack. All 3 servicemen survived with only minor scratches and concussion. Your generosity in funding the vehicle was instrumental in saving the lives of all 3 Ukrainian soldiers. Now we are launching our Christmas Tree Trucks 2025 campaign. The goal is to raise €11,000. So please help us buy another vehicle for one of the most effective Ukrainian brigades on the 4th Christmas of Ukraine's epic fight for survival against an imperialistic and genocidal neighbouring state. Help us celebrate the heroism of the soldiers who have held the line against all the odds, who fight for their freedom and pay a terrible price, while also, incidentally, protecting the freedoms of Europe.